and a titan of industry, Frank Seravalli, joins us on the show now. Frank, what went wrong for the Phillies?
Oh man, bats went cold when your big stars go 0 for 27 to round out the last 2 games of a series. Probably not good news.
That crown bottle looks like you've gotten into it, eh?
There's a leak actually, so no comment.
Frank, yesterday the NHL attempts their Frozen Frenzy. A lot of us here in Canada were thinking, this sounds like fun. I'm excited.
What Frozen Frenzy for you in Canada?
I was able to catch a little bit of it. I thought for the most part, the actual viewing experience was pretty good. I'm also someone who works in hockey and has Tuesdays and the ability to sit down and watch this for all afternoon long. What was the initial thought that you had from watching it a little bit and kind of the reaction that you took away from the hockey world, or maybe people that they're trying to grow into becoming people who want to be in the hockey world and fans of the sport?
I think you just hit it on the head. You were able to watch it in the afternoon, which for us here out east started at 6. And let's just say you're from Philly and you're a Flyers fan. Puck drop of your team's game last night was 11:08 local time.
Oh.
That's a late one. So, look, I applaud the league, give them full marks for trying something different. I thought the staggered start times were unnecessary. Just you could have done the same thing and had a Frozen Frenzy and had, some intermission content spliced in. I thought they went too far with the staggered start times. I thought it was just late. You heard Derek Lalonde today, the Red Wings coach, just saying like 8:23 local start for Detroit. Like it wasn't great. I also think doing this was such a good idea that it shouldn't have been spoiled on a Tuesday in October.
Yes.
That was the other part. And then the other thing is you also touched on it. You guys, it's got to be available in Canada. If you're going to go after something of this magnitude, it's great to try and build an audience in the US, but don't steer away from your hardcore audience in Canada.
Yeah, I thought it was great because last year we touched on this. Like, how cool was it on the TSN app? You could have NFL Red Zone last year. Like, yeah, and that grew a lot of football fans, grew everybody want to be in fantasy football. I thought that, like, our opinion yesterday on the show, at least what I brought up, was like, do it on Saturday. I know that college football is going to be the thing that you want to go up against, but take a shot at that instead of the NFL, because hockey fans will be able to watch on Saturday, and maybe they tell their friends about it that aren't hockey fans.
Sorry, Frank, you're in the States. Is the overlap that huge of like college hockey fans and college football fans? Like, we don't care about college football up here. Explain it to me. I don't understand this.
So there really isn't much overlap. It's just the point is, that's such a dominant force. Like, you just have to look at Major League Baseball playoffs. There's a reason why there are no games on Sundays. The NFL dominates and rules everything. College football, the viewership is just a notch below the NFL and still above any other major professional sport, including the NBA and Major League Baseball at times. So it's a beast. So here's what I would say is it's really hard to get building availability in 16 buildings on any given Saturday. There's concerts, there, whatever show that you could imagine. There's NBA games in some of those buildings. It's not easy, but what the target should be is a Saturday in February after the Super Bowl has ended, and really go after a segment of US fan bases, whether you want to call it Hockey Day or whatever it is. That's the way to really try and grow it. Because I hate saying it this way, and this is why I said October fell short, is there's so many other things going on. You went head-to-head last night with the NLCS Game 7. People are just getting their kids back in school. There's football. There's all these youth sports going on. Do it on a weekend day and do it after NFL is done. I used to say this all the time as a beat guy covering the Flyers. All of a sudden, the press box would get a lot more crowded with other general media in February, and I'd call it National Hockey Columnist Month, because all of a sudden you'd get people that would never be at games in February and then March, right until baseball season could start up, and then they'd be gone again, and you'd see them again in the playoffs.
That start time, you mentioned it last night. Was that just moved because the NLCS had to go to a Game 7 at Citizens Bank?
Nope, that was in Vegas.
Oh,
and it was designed to be the last game of the staggered day. And Flyers fans ended up paying the price. In an odd way, it kind of worked out that the Philly team was in NLCS Game 7. You could kind of flip over if you were disgusted enough with one Philly sports team and go to another. But 6 o'clock till 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, again, it's not great in terms of how that is executed.
Something that was executed greatly last night yesterday, I guess, felt like the NHL Edge got a lot of people excited. What did you take away from this? I know I saw it right up at Daily Faceoff as well about this new NHL Edge, which is giving fans an opportunity to learn a little bit more about, I guess, like the insight into what players are doing on the ice from a lot of the tracking systems and the pucks on the players, all these things. What did you think about the launch of NHL Edge?
Yeah, I think it's important to finally be able to sink your teeth into this puck and player tracking that we've all heard so much about, but only get a glimpse every once in a while on a broadcast if something flashes up on the screen. So now to be able to not just look into more of it yourself, have some direct player comparisons. I think the goalie comps are most fascinating. You can also compare players and goalies year over year. The data is not it's not a thick sample size because it only goes back. This is now the third season since 21-22 when all of the puck and player tracking was finally implemented. But for me, it also adds a lot of good context to what we think we see. And you also realize things that you might not have seen with your eyes. And Matt Larkin had a great story on Daily Faceoff about this, pointing out Quentin Byfield's speed for a 6'5", 230-pound large human. He moves really damn well. And so I'm kind of looking at his game on paper and eye test. I first off wouldn't realize he moves that well. And second, when you see someone score 3 goals and 5 the previous year before that, you're like, come on, man, you need more from a number 2 overall pick. And then you start to see some figures like that with his skating speed. And you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I wonder if this guy can finally get to where he's supposed to get to. And you see Travis Sanheim, for instance, on the back end, the only defenseman this season with 200+ mile-an-hour shots, thought he's a pretty decent piece for the Flyers on their back end. And now I'm like, ooh, that's really interesting. No one else has gotten to that. It's one thing to do it in a hardest shot competition, but it's another thing to tee it up live in game, receiving a pass from someone.
What's your favorite stat from NHL Edge? I know we looked at a bunch of Canucks players yesterday. I know Quads dove into it as well, wrote something over at Canucks Army. What's your favorite one that is now publicly available to fans?
I would say the goalie shot location data. It's way more nuanced and broken down than I thought it might be. And so there's all these little areas of the ice. They've got high danger, of course, and they've got mid-range, but also long range. And so I just feel like those maps sort of add some context to what we're seeing and can provide a little bit more layers to, just from our media perspective, coverage.
Just like we all saw it coming, Canucks are 4-2-0 to start the year. What are you liking from this team that you're just not seeing from the Edmonton Oilers?
Like how you phrased that. I would say this is a direct comparable to not just the Oilers, but also the Flames. Guess what both of those two teams have had that only once the Canucks were openly questioned by their coach and then seemed to have fixed it, is work ethic. That was a big, of course, I don't want to say bugaboo, but something that Rick Tocchet harped on last week coming through Philly, that I think the Canucks, you've gotten way better efforts from them. And that's one thing that I think is still lingering from the Oilers, who also had a very similar type press conference from their coach after their stop against the Flyers, interestingly enough, just 2 days later. And then the Flames, like, you hear some of the things that have been coming out of Nikita Zadorov's mouth and some others. There's some frustration that's set in, and the Canucks have brought what I thought was a much needed lunch pail mentality to this season. Who are we? Like, that should be taped to the top of their dressing room. Who are we to think that we're better than anyone else? That's the line of the season as far as I'm concerned. We're only a few weeks in. It's going to be tough to top.
Do you like that Tocchet? Like, we've talked about it, how it feels like he kind of nipped that in the bud right away. Like he didn't mince words. He didn't wait at all.
Soft.
Kind of seems like
He said they were soft.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing. It's like it's the worst 4-letter word you can say to a hockey player or team. And guess what? It's accurate, and it's been accurate for the last few years. And I said this to you guys last season and beyond. The Vancouver Canucks have been way too easy to play against. And that feels like it's changing. And it takes someone like Rick Tocchet to continually call it out privately first before doing it publicly to really have something like that sink in.
I don't know if it's worse to be called soft or if I were to snap a thing of spaghetti here in front of you two. See what you guys
have you seen that video, Frank, in like the 80s, 90s? I don't know.
Rick Tocchet video?
Rick Tocchet home tour. He's like, I just like to snap the spaghetti, and he snaps the spaghetti and puts it in water.
No, I haven't. I've seen some glorious Rick Tocchet footage from the 80s, though. He had one of the best, and it's hard to believe now with his lack of follicles, but he had a glorious mullet back in the 80s.
Yeah, we see a lot of people on Canucks Twitter with that same photo. I think I know which
is
one.
Is it him like running during training camp with super short shorts?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't know what you're looking at. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's a beauty.
You get stuff taped up on the wall.
Okay, watch it there, Quads. Frank, I guess a question that a lot of Canucks fans are having is Teddy Bluger's about to return from the lineup here. Somebody's going to have to come out of this lineup. It looks like it's going to be one of the wingers. And I think a lot of Canucks fans are asking, well, what's the latest that we're hearing about Connor Garland? Because if they have to take out a winger, could it be via trade? Is there anything to report here on Connor Garland? Are you hearing anything?
No, nothing new to report. I think it's been status quo as far as I know. I think it's been a huge hang up on the term. And look, it's, far be it from me to be the one that's making lineup suggestions. But I think what's really interesting is, like, I think you got to keep someone like Höglander going. To me, he can't be the guy that comes out. Is that a harsh or too much opinion?
That's a great take, and it sounds like you've actually been watching Canucks games if you have that take.
Well, first off, you need guys like him in your lineup that can make things happen. And second, he's on the younger end of this team that he has to be a piece that continues to develop. And so taking him out, making him a healthy scratch. I mean, to me, like, I don't, you could come up with a bunch of different scenarios, but like one guy and this is not a knock on him at all, and he's actually been pretty good to start the year. What is Phil DiGiuseppe? So like is he not a spare part in the NHL? A fringe NHL player?
I think he's a guy who's found a coach that really believes it. We say this all the time. Tocchet's been saying this ever since he got here. Like, he really likes the way that PDG plays.
Size, north-south. Like, Frank, he's getting compared to Alex Burrows right now in the market. Like, there's people throwing that out there. And hey,
you were on their show earlier.
I agree with you. Like, I agree with you that Phil DiGiuseppe at the NHL level is a spare part. He is not your prototypical top 6 player. And if you're going to be a playoff team, you probably don't want Phil DiGiuseppe in your top 6. I just don't know if, I don't know. You finished your thought, I guess.
No, I would just say, like, you have to, if you're the Canucks and you want to get to where you get to, it's great. And you need players like Phil DiGiuseppe to help push you there. Like, think of some other guys that have found and carved out niche roles in the NHL that have been really well liked and trusted by a coach. I think of someone like Pierre-Edouard Bellemare or whoever it might be, other guys that have come through different organizations that have found and carved out roles and homes. And I'm not saying DiGiuseppe can't be that guy. My only point would be on a pure macro level, 30,000 foot view. Whatever it is that you do, you have to continue to pump the tires and confidence of someone like Höglander to just allow him to continue to progress. We know that development is not a straight line. It's difficult. There are tons of false starts, fits and starts. But for me, like, I could take out a bunch of other guys before we got to Nils Höglander.
Yep. Completely agree. I think he's been excellent. And former guest of the show back when he couldn't speak English. We learned
Dakota. Who else is in line? Dakota Joshua?
Yeah. I mean, you got Joshua. I think Beauvillier's starting to get a little bit of a concern here.
What I will say,
offense.
like I would take Beauvillier out of the lineup way faster than I take PGG out of this lineup.
What about Dakota Joshua?
Not before Beauvillier.
Not coming out.
You're not before Beauvillier, no. And Beauvillier is way before PDG. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, okay. I don't know. Like PDG's been the Canucks' fastest skater this year. We were looking at NHL Edge. He's leading the team in like top.
You're getting the edge, Quad.
And he's forechecking very, very hard right now. Like,
well, you need that especially with, you know, you have someone like JT Miller and hopefully they could set up Brock Besser. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, the lines worked.
Yeah, I mean, so then, okay, so my point was, don't get lost in the 6-game stretch to start the year and think big picture. That's all I was stressing.
I like that.
I think
and the other part too, like I would just think back to being there during training camp and Rick Tocchet kind of snapping back against the idea of Dakota Joshua having a carved out spot on this team, saying that that's not the case.
Yep.
So if you were ranking your candidates to come out, who would they be?
I mean,
Studnicka, Beauvillier. Oh, you got Bluger, so Studnicka is already out. Okay.
He'll be down to the A, yeah.
Beauvillier is number 1 for me. That's the guy you take out of the lineup immediately. You don't touch Sam Lafferty. You don't touch Suter. I'd say you probably go Beauvillier, Joshua. Like, those are the two. And then if I had to pick a third, which I don't, I would say then Suter, but I don't think it should be Suter. And I think even when you do that, you're creating that internal competition that this team's just lacked for so long. Like we've talked about,
meritocracy is good. The fact that someone can come in like Di Giuseppe, as you mentioned, and really find a home, I think it sends a message to everyone else.
Yep.
My only thing with taking out some of those other guys before Beauvillier is how many of them have scored 20 goals in the NHL? It's not money. I don't care about the money part. The cap hit's the same whether he's in or out for the most part.
I don't think any of them have. I don't think Joshua has. I mean, Connor Garland.
I'm answering. I know the question. I mean, I answered it. I know that he struggled, but
most importantly,
there has to be a way to get there for him.
And that line's got a nice little nickname. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but the PB&J line with Phil, Brock, and JT. I mean, come on.
I did hear that. I kind of like it.
I like it as well.
Frank, we always like these. I like PB&Js.
Hey, I haven't had a PB&J in so long. You know, like
it's such a. You know what? Like, it's funny you said that because all the time I'm like, it's such an underrated like dinner. Like you get through a day and you're like, oh, I don't want to order anything. Maybe I should DoorDash something, and then you don't. And it's like, hey, I could have cereal, I could have soup, maybe a little Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner, or why don't I just make myself a PB&J?
Hey, I'll go with like, maybe this is the adult version a little bit more, but I'll do peanut butter and let it melt with then a little honey on top. Like maybe that's my new jam, and that's not too much of a mix.
I think the jam is so underrated.
Yeah, it's true. Good.
You go strawberry or grape?
I think strawberry, but like if I had, like, we've got some that I just go down to the market, the Granville Island market down here, and I'll get the real jam, like some jam that somebody's grandma's been slaving over and that they're selling at the market.
Like, you're not going to get some Peter Laviolette jam? Get some jam? No? You're not going to get any of that?
Quad's got enough for that, yeah.
I just want to show Frank before he goes. Frank, so you know how we were talking about my dog sleeping in a crate? He learned to sleep in a bed since our last call. So that's the new Burt Cam. He's sleeping in his little bed.
Very nice.
Anyways, I'm done.
Your living room looks good, Quads. You're so grown up.
It's a brand new coffee table. I just built it.
Oh, look at you. IKEA?
Yeah.
Did you see how many Legos are in the background there, though?
Yeah, I got a lot of Lego.
All right, Frank.
Like when I leave my studio here, I got to trip over like 19 Legos and break my foot going up the stairs with my kids.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's going to be the same when you show up at Quad's house at some point here.
All right, guys.
Good time.
See ya.